This is Mike from fearshop.com. Make sure you like this video and leave your comments. Also, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to set up notifications so you know when the next video drops. Let's get into it. Thanks for checking out this Jaws deep dive. I want to take you on a journey into my thoughts on the original Jaws from 1975. This is one of the greatest films ever made. No one steps foot onto a beach without humming the Jaws beat or looking twice to check for sharks. A lot of people are afraid of the ocean simply because of this movie. Jaws is a 1975 American thriller directed by Steven Spielberg and based on Peter Benchley's 1974 novel of the same name. In the film, a man-eating great white shark attacks beachgoers at a summer resort town, prompting police chief Martin Brody, Roy Scheider, to hunt it with the help of marine biologist Richard Dreyfuss and a professional shark hunter played by Robert Shaw. Murray Hamilton plays the mayor and Lorraine Gary portrays Brody's wife. The screenplay is credited to Benchley, who wrote the first drafts, and actor-writer Carl Gottlieb, who rewrote the script during principal photography. Speaking of Benchley, Jaws is adapted from his best-selling novel of the same name, which Benchley based on a series of shark attacks that occurred off the coast of New Jersey in 1916. And after an incident where a New York fisherman named Frank Mundus caught a 4,500-pound shark off the coast of Montauk in 1964. Other title ideas Benchley had before settling on Jaws was The Stillness in the Water, The Silence of the Deep, Leviathan Rising, and The Jaws of Death. I'm not sure that any of these capture the same magic as the simple title of Jaws. Spielberg first learned of the book from being on top of a large stack of papers in his producer's office. He initially thought it was about a dentist. Believe it or not, Spielberg was not the original director chosen for the film. The first director was fired after a production meeting in which he continually referred to the shark as a whale. 3 months before production was set to begin, Spielberg decided he wanted to direct a different movie because he did not want to be typecast as a truck and shark director. He went to speak with the producers, who knew he wanted to back out. When Spielberg saw that they had worn Jaws crew t-shirts, all three started laughing and Spielberg said, "Never mind." Early drafts of the screenplay featured a subplot where Hooper has an affair with Chief Brody's wife. It was ported over from the book. Another detail left out of the movie from the book was that Mayor Vaughn was under pressure from the mafia, not local business owners, to keep Amity's beaches open because of their real estate investments on the island. The fictional town of Amity was actually Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, where the majority of the film was shot. Jaws had a troubled production, going over budget and past schedule. As the art department's mechanical sharks often malfunctioned, Spielberg decided to mostly suggest the shark's presence, employing an ominous and minimalistic theme created by composer John Williams to indicate its pending appearances. In fact, the shark does not fully appear in a shot until 1 hour and 21 minutes into the 2-hour film. The reason is not because the mechanical shark was barely working during filming. So Spielberg had to create inventive ways like quince yellow barrels to shoot around the non-functioning shark. Jaws was marred with so many technical problems that the original scheduled 65-day shoot ballooned into 159 days, not counting post-production. The shark weighed in at 1.2 tons and measured 25 feet in length. Spielberg and others had compared the suggestive approach of not showing the shark until near the end of the film to that of director Alfred Hitchcock. Universal Pictures gave the film what was then an exceptionally wide release for a major studio picture on over 450 screens, accompanied by an extensive marketing campaign with a heavy emphasis on television spots and tie-in merchandise. Speaking of troubles during filmmaking, no one expected the Orca to actually begin sinking when Robert Shaw, Roy Scheider, and Richard Dreyfuss on board. Due to a malfunction, the boat started leaking, causing Spielberg to send another boat in a mad dash to retrieve the actors and the crew from the sinking ship. One camera was submerged, but the technicians were able to salvage the film inside, saving Spielberg from having to add yet another day to his already backlogged shooting schedule. After the full-size shark sank during its first time in the water. The crew also nicknamed the shark Flaws, or the Great White Turd. The mechanical sharks were such a disappointment, partly because their combined cost was $225,000, nearly $1 million in today's currency. In another example of troubles while filming, George Lucas came to visit Spielberg and uncredited screenwriter John Milius in the special effects shop, and his head got stuck inside of Bruce's mouth. Spielberg and Milius decided to play a prank on Lucas and close Bruce's jaws on him, but the controls jammed, leaving Lucas stuck inside. Bruce's jaws had to be pried open in order to rescue the future Star Wars director from a most embarrassing predicament. Jaws was set to be released over the Christmas season, but Spielberg took so long filming it, the movie had a summer release date, which was traditionally reserved for low-end movies. The film delay is what spurred Jaws to become the first movie to define the concept of a summer blockbuster. The film's initial budget was $3.5 million, but it wound up costing around $8 million to make, the equivalent of $35 million in today's dollars. Benchley himself can be seen in a cameo in the film as the news reporter who addressed the camera on the beach. Benchley had previously worked as a news reporter for the Washington Post before penning Jaws. Steven Spielberg also makes a cameo in the movie. His voice is the Amity Island dispatcher who calls Quint's boat, the Orca, with Sheriff Brody's wife on the line. Spielberg was chosen to direct Jaws by producers Richard Zanuck and David Brown, who had also worked with the then 28-year-old director on his 1974 film, The Sugarland Express. They chose him because of the film Duel, which featured a maniacal trucker terrorizing a mild-mannered driver. The producer thought the movie was thematically similar to the story of Jaws, making Spielberg a great fit. Spielberg nicknamed the shark Bruce after his lawyer, Bruce Raymer. Despite making a name for himself with gritty TV work like the killer trucker flick Duel, the then 27-year-old Spielberg was coming off Goldie Hawn box office flop The Sugarland Express when Jaws went into production. A perfectionist by nature, the young filmmaker was always under mounting pressure from the studio producers and the film's accountants to deliver even in the midst of mechanical problems, inclement weather, and temperamental actors. Spielberg had several mental breakdowns and spent many sleepless nights in his cabin amid growing fears that he was going to be taken off to film. To combat his anxiety and insomnia, he had a pillow sent from his home in California and slept with a stalk of celery underneath because the smell soothed his nerves. Maybe if Quint had celery in his pocket, he wouldn't have ended up in a shark's belly. Scheider got the part of Chief Martin Brody after overhearing Spielberg talk to a friend at a Hollywood party about the scene where the shark leaps out of the water and onto Quint's boat. Scheider was instantly enthralled and asked Spielberg if he could be in the film. Spielberg loved Scheider from his role in The French Connection and later offered the actor the part. Scheider improvised the now famous line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." Charlton Heston was considered for the role of Police Chief Martin Brody, but Spielberg decided to go with a less-known actor because he didn't want the audience to immediately identify Brody as the heroic savior based on Preston's previous film roles. Heston reportedly refused to ever work with the director. Spielberg initially approached John Voight, Timothy Bottoms, and Jeff Bridges to pay the oceanographer Matt Hooper. When none of them could commit to the role, Spielberg's friend George Lucas suggested Richard Dreyfuss, whom Lucas had directed in American Graffiti. Dreyfuss would later accept the part because he thought he was terrible in the title role of the film The Apprenticeship of Duffy Kravitz a year earlier. When actors Lee Marvin and Sterling Hayden, the first and second choices to play the grizzled fisherman Quint, respectively, both turned Spielberg down, producers Zanuck and Brown recommended English actor Robert Shaw, who they previously worked with in 1973's The Sting. Shaw drank quite a bit on set and was often a volatile presence, but he also frequently worried about his taxes. The native Brit was reportedly being pursued by both the IRS and British taxmen, causing the actor to flee the country on weekends for Canada to avoid facing a tax liability for spending too many hours on the U.S. soil. In fact, Shaw had to forgo his salary on the film in order to make amends with the IRS for his charges of tax evasion. In early drafts of the screenplay, Quint was originally introduced while causing a disturbance in a movie theater while watching John Huston's 1958 adaptation of Moby Dick. The scene was shot, but actor Gregory Peck, who plays Captain Ahab in that movie, owned the rights to the film version of Moby Dick and would not let the filmmakers of Jaws use the footage, so the sequence is cut. Jaws was initially rated R by the MPAA, but after some more gruesome frames of the shot showing the severed leg of the man attacked by a shark in the estuary were trimmed down, the film was given a PG rating. The PG-13 rating wasn't created until after Spielberg's own film, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, caused the MPAA to change the system in 1984. The poster for the film still reads that the movie may be too intense for younger children. The original ending in the script had the shark dying of harpoon injuries inflicted by Quint and Brody a la Moby Dick, but Spielberg thought the movie needed a crowd-pleasing finale and came up with the exploding tank as seen in the final film. The dialogue and foreshadowing of the tank were dropped in as they shot the movie. Jaws was the first movie released in more than 400 theaters in the United States and the first movie to gross over $100 million at the box office. It was the highest grossing movie of all time until Star Wars was released 2 years later. One of the biggest scares in Jaws comes courtesy of fisherman Ben Gardner's head popping through an underwater hole in his chewed-up boat. More surprising than Ben's severed head is that the scene was reshot in editor Verna Field's swimming pool in Van Nuys, California, 6 months after principal photography wrapped in New England. Unhappy with the original version, Spielberg borrowed the props and some film equipment from the Universal backlot and set everything up and filmed in Fields' pool, adding milk to the water to give it the same murky look as the water in Martha's Vineyard. The scene was seamlessly cut back into the film and has been making audience jump ever since. Spielberg was not originally a fan of the film's now iconic theme song. The first time he heard John Williams' opening track, he laughed at its simplicity. He later conceded the music made the movie more thrilling. While the mechanical sharks were destroyed after filming, the Orca, the film's famous boat, ended up at Universal Studios in Hollywood. Steven Spielberg would often visit the boat and reminisce about the movie that launched his career. So that wraps this one up. I want to hear from you. Post your thoughts on this video and let me know how Jaws impacted your love for horror. That's it for this episode. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video. Make sure you subscribe. But most of all, make sure you keep it horror.